Hello there, dear yogis, and welcome to Not Your Perfect Yogi channel. I'm Anna and I'm not your perfect yogi, and this is my life story. I decided to do this video because I wanted to share with you guys the story behind Not Your Perfect Yogi and how I got to that concept and what my mission is with the photos, with the training that I'm posting, with my own goals in my own life, and to give you a bit of context about the philosophy of being not a perfect yogi, of not being a perfect yogi. First of all, I'm going to start with my life story. For those of you that have been following me on Instagram, maybe you guys know I'm Romanian born. So I was born in Romania, and I was born in Romania even before the big revolution in '89. So I was born in communist Romania. So my first years of my life were actually spent in communism. And then I was actually the first generation of children that grew up after communism. So what did this mean for me? Well, in a very hurt society that was looking for a model from outside, to grow up in a society that's developing and wants to pick up everything from the West is good on the one hand. On the other hand, it's also bad, because everything that was coming from the West was considered good. McDonald's, fast food, Coke, everything that had to do with modernization. So this meant that my generation is known in Romania as the generation of McDonald's and Coca-Cola. I'm not kidding you, this is really a concept. This meant that no one was defending the children back then from all these things, because they were all new to us, so we didn't know that they were actually bad. We thought, okay, they are coming from the West, there must be probably good. So I grew up with a lot of fast food, I grew up with sodas, I grew up with all this junk food as well. Of course, that wasn't all my life, but you have to understand that I grew up with things that children nowadays, also in Romania, wouldn't be given anymore, because it's not that healthy, and now we all know about it. What followed next is that I went on to study. I studied in Bucharest, and then I moved to Austria and inscribed in a master's degree there. I was accepted at the University of Vienna, and this is where I met my husband as well, and I moved to Austria when I was 22 and stayed there until I was 29, 28. And what happened in Austria was that because I was for the first time away from my family and all of this, and Austria has this lovely cuisine of very sweet stuff, and a lot of cakes, a lot of pastry, bread. So I gained about 8 kilos. I gained 20 pounds almost. And it's not that I did something about it immediately, but I didn't feel very comfortable with it. I don't think I ever regained the weight that I had before moving to Austria. And probably also the bad choices that I made throughout my teenage years were starting to be visible in my body. So with a few pounds more than what was healthy or good for me, I also started a corporate job in Austria in media and advertising. If you guys know the advertising field, you know that it's a very it's a crazy environment where you work late hours, where your life rhythm isn't the best. And beyond this, I was also very much stressed by the fact that it was a new country. I was working in a different language, so I was putting a lot of effort. I was putting enormous effort, and I got pretty successful. I got so successful that when I applied, when a recruiter contacted me about England, when I applied to the first job there, I got a job in London, England. This was 3 years ago. So then we relocated, me and my husband, we relocated to London. I started my job there. I loved it because I love the people, I like the rhythm, but as you know, the London rhythm is not the quietest of rhythms, and there's a lot of late nights work, but beyond late nights and stressful work, there's commutes that are very hard to do in London, and there's a lot of going out to the pub with your colleagues, which doesn't help your your natural rhythm either. So I put a lot of effort into my job, and then we had to move also to Oxford because my husband was teaching there, so I had an extra commute, 2 hours there and 2 hours back from London altogether. So 4 hours of commute on top of a hard-working 9-hour, 10-hour sometimes job. You can imagine the stress and the levels of cortisol that I was having from all of this. And although I loved my job, although I was successful, I loved my colleagues. London is a very young environment. My colleagues were all very young, so it's very fun. I realized that this life is not good for my health. And at one point I was starting to find solutions to keep me going, to keep me strong for my work, to keep me in power and in shape, so that I can face and then I can deal with everything that I had to do. So first I started with juicing, and I started with drinking juices and taking a lot more vegetables and fruit in my body, and this helped a lot because it gave me the kick that the coffee couldn't give me anymore. So this was helping, but at one point I was so exhausted that I said, okay, I'll just take 1 week holiday and I'll just fly somewhere far away. I had a friend that suggested that she was there for a month. She just quit her job. She had a burnout. Burnouts are not something to joke with, but are something very common in the advertising industry. So she had kind of a burnout, and she decided to go to Thailand. And she convinced me to go along for a week to a yoga retreat. And I went to Koh Samui with her for a week. This was almost 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. And after that 1 week, I felt like my life was all changed. First of all, there we didn't have any meat, so I was eating only vegetables and vegetarian, even more like vegan. Sometimes I would have milk, but not so much. So I was doing yoga like 2 times, 3 times a day sometimes, and eating this. And when I came back, I realized I don't need to eat meat anymore. I always wanted to do this out of ethical reasons, but I never managed due to the fact that I grew up with meat, so meat was my go-to food. So then I realized I could stop eating meat, and I realized that I'm better off as a vegetarian, and my life kind of changed with this. But at the same time, yoga was in my life for some time. I've been doing Bikram yoga. At some point I always knew the benefits of it, and I always knew when I needed to recharge my batteries that I could go to yoga class and have my body a bit healed. I have very, very bad back problems, like really, really bad back pain, and with my many jobs and stress, this didn't get easier. It got worse and worse and worse. So I was just doing yoga to recover myself as a reparation. But after I did this 1 week, I realized, well, there's more to it than just doing it when I need it. Actually doing it on a regular basis could really help me. So I started doing it more regular and more regular and more regular, until at one point I realized Also in my job, I was becoming more balanced. I knew how to avoid the big stress. I knew how to balance myself better. But also with this balance, actually, I was in a very good place at my job at that moment, because I realized, okay, I know how to balance this. I still like it. But I realized that this wasn't my life. Once you clear your head and your head kind of is free of all the pressure that you've put on yourself and the stories that you heard or you put in your head, you know, the Eastern European girl that needs to make it in London, so I was very motivated by this. Then you realize, no, I can actually decide and do what I want to do. So then I just started putting money aside, because I was commuting. My husband got the accommodation in Oxford, which was free, but I was still commuting, so I was saving money on accommodation, and then I started just not spending so much as I did, because when you're in a corporate world, you just spend so much to compensate for your life, to feel that you're alive. So I stopped doing this. And in a year, since I decided to quit my job, I have managed to put aside enough money for me to take a break. I had a goal in my head. I had 20,000 in my head as a goal for me to be able to take at least a year off and try everything out. And I realized that what I want to do with this year off is to actually follow a yoga teacher training. I want to improve my body, I want to make myself stronger, and I want to make a career, or I want to make a job out of helping other people also get to this clarity and get to the point where they feel they need to keep their bodies healthy. So this is what happened to me only in 1 week of going to a yoga retreat, but I was reaching my maximum level of stress, so probably this is why it works so good for me. But the transition that is happening now is me transforming my body through practice every day. I'm going to start the yoga teacher training in September, so until then I'm training every day. I'm teaching you guys what beginners need to do in order to be able to do certain poses. I'm teaching myself this. I'm teaching myself that it's okay to not be able to do everything. I did 1 weekend at a yoga teacher training just to try it out, and there I realized that a lot of teachers just teach you to do the best at your level, and there's always enough people that want to learn from you how to, especially if there are less flexible people that also want to get into yoga. Sometimes it helps if they have a less flexible teacher or a teacher that can relate to their story. So this is what I'm doing now. I'm following the teacher training. I will share the story with you guys on this channel. This is why I'm creating the YouTube channel, so I can share the story at every step and how I'm going through it, how I'm going from my bad eating decisions all throughout my life, bad stress, corporate madness, how I'm transforming into a yogi, how I'm transforming my body, and how this process will be for me. And at the same time, I'm teaching you guys here on this channel, but also on my Instagram channel. I'll teach you guys what you need to do in order to be able to do yoga as a complete beginner, as zero level experience. So this is my journey. I'm not your perfect yogi. For all the others, no perfect yogis out there. I'm happy to hear your stories. I'm happy to know if someone feels the same and is looking for a way out of their stressful life, out of their bad habits, out of their pain in their body. And I'm happy to help with advice, and I'm happy to help through sharing my story and giving all that I know to you guys as well. So this was my first video on this channel. I'm very happy that you got here, you watched it. If you are a yogi, if you're not a yogi, if you are a corporate girl like me, let me know your story. I'm happy to hear from you. I'm happy to hear your comments. And until next time, I'm not your perfect yogi.